The NFL draft is a month away from right now as we're recording this podcast. And I got to be honest with you, I can't do it. I can't make it. I cannot go another 30 days of reading mock drafts, of looking at the inactivity from the Bears and the collective outcry of us not doing anything. It seems to be too long. And I understand. I work for the NFL Network. We've got a month of shows that we have to do. Path to the Draft, Mock Draft Live, Total Access. I'm as guilty as anybody for being the reason why we have to continue to push the draft further and further away. But the thing is, I'm ready to go now. I want to see the way that our team is constructed. I'm tired of this speculation. It's kind of like whenever there's a new DC movie coming out, and I sit there and conjure up the way the movie should act in my head. And when I finally see the final product, I'm a little bit disappointed, kind of like, the Justice League. The Justice League I would have written would have been way better. Similarly, it feels like a lot of us, the drafts that we're concocting are going to be better than the one that Ryan Poles has. That won't be the case. But in any event, I just wanted to start. And speaking of starting, Sammy, let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to the Sick Podcast. It is me, Adam Rank, joining you, as I said, a month from the NFL draft. And I think what I'm really getting at is that I would like to do shows where the cold open or the subject of conversation is not about, hey, everybody, hang out, just see how this works out. Ryan Poles has a plan. Let's let it play out, because it feels like we have to deliver the same message over and over again. Although there has been some news over the last couple of days, the Bears continue to add depth pieces to the organization. Dane Crookshank is the newest member of the Chicago Bears, as when we're recording this, I should at least say, who looks like a pretty good one. A guy who, over the first couple of years of his career, didn't really live up to his potential. He did have some injury concerns, but over last season, ended up being a guy who could shut down opposing tight ends, and it's actually played pretty well. And I think he's one of those players that, again, it doesn't grab the headlines. It doesn't make everybody on SportsCenter or Total Access excited. We're not going to devote the C block to Total Access on Friday night to this signing, but one that I think is pretty good. So why don't we bring in our first guest, or our only guest, because we're joining us today. You know him from 670 The Score. He's coming in. Oh, I can't tell. There he is. Mark Rhodes here.
Hi.
I was going to give you a more glowing introduction because, of course, a lot of people know you from the Cubs pregame show. You transitioned over to the Bears. You're the sideline reporter. The thing that interests me the most, you're the overnight guy on 670 The Score, which I think that is, like, for somebody like me, like a lot of people grow up and they're like, I want to bat cleanup for the Cubs. I want to play point guard for the Bulls. I want to be the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. I think doing overnights for 670, that's an iconic spot. How has it been going for you?
Oh, well, I'm really going to test how genuine you are being right now about the glow of the overnights, because you, Adam, are welcome to come on live anytime you want. Midnight to 5, baby.
You got under, but I'm West Coast, so I cheat anyways. It doesn't matter.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because that's one thing I will say, that in doing the overnights, it is very difficult to have guests on. Almost impossible, unless you have people from the West Coast or in a different time zone. Like I had, I guess my highest profile guest on the overnights is, and it's simply not a guest driven show. It's just not. But I had Brett Boone on, because Brett Boone, he does his podcast and he's out on the West Coast, and a buddy of mine is one of his producers, and he said, hey, you want to jump on, 50,000 watt radio station with this guy who, digs baseball. He doesn't know who I don't think he knows who I am. But so he comes on at 10 o'clock, and I'll be damned if he didn't stay on with me for an hour. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's one of the tricks. So Adam, I will definitely, man, I will love to have you on sometime. So quid pro quo. It's all happening.
100%. You got to listen. Yeah. Everybody listen to this. I'm also, it's weirdly, because of the time my kids go to bed, it would actually behoove me to be on closer to midnight, which would be 2 a.m. your time, which is actually better for me because like everybody's in bed. I can go out and do my thing. And it's perfect because like I have a friend who does a radio show in Las Vegas. And I know everybody got mad, by the way, last week because Cynthia and I sat here and were talking glowingly about each other. I'm a fan, so I want to talk. I'm interested in hearing these stories. But I have a friend who does a radio station in Las Vegas who's, a later night, but it's 9 a.m. here. And I'm like, bro, it's difficult. Like 9 a.m. is the worst time. Because then I'm panicking. If my 3-year-old's not going to sleep, then I start getting a cold sweat. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So if I can wait till 11 p.m. my time.
Oh my God.
Listen, last night I was watching Summer School. No, I was watching The Italian Job last night. I got nothing to do. So I'll be happy. I'm happy to come on.
No, I got to tell you, like, again, another thing about the overnights, that it's right around 2 a.m. when it does start to get very difficult as the host because you're 2 hours in to a 5-hour solo show, and it's a weird time for listenership and callers because you get a definite drive of people right at midnight because there are people who are just either leaving for work or they're still up or whatever. Midnight's cool, but like at the next time, then around 2 a.m., it's a lot of kind of like people are kind of sleeping at 2 a.m. or maybe they're into their work. And then around 4 a.m. or so, then you have life again. So yeah, if I could strategically place you to help you and your child and me and my need for something entertaining at 2 a.m., then boy, this is, wow, worth the price of admission.
No, 100%. Happy to do it. Really enjoy it. And, during the NFL season, it works out too, because I'm writing the Stardom Situm column at post midnight. So just to pull back the curtain a little bit. So yeah, so it's really a work time for me because I like to work around my children's schedule.
Great.
So it does. But also, when you're working overnight, and I got to imagine the people who've been calling you over the last couple of weeks, probably a little bit upset with the inactivity of the Bears or their perceived inactivity. What do you make of the Bears off season so far?
Well, I think it's been, I guess the best way for me to sum it up of what I've been saying is quantity over quality until further notice. And the quality that they have assumed or acquired or whatever, signed, acquired, traded for, it's all like they're all pros, man. Like they're all like, Lucas Patrick and, Justin Jones and Kadeem Muhammad, and Trevor Siemian and all these guys. They're all pros, man, but there's nobody that moves the meter that they have signed yet. And I don't think that they've intended to move the meter. When I talk about moving the meter, talk about Ryan Poles. I think that they know they need to fill roster spots, that they have to not only tear down. I mean, they are tearing down and they're tearing down big pieces, but they're kind of putting smaller bricks up for right now, until they feel comfortable going full force into, I guess you could say the Larry Ogunjobi, attempt was a decent sized swing. I mean, that wasn't like a full ferocious Bryce Harper swing we're talking about. I mean, it was, more of a toned down Nico Horner contact swing. And it might get you a base hitter. It actually probably would have been like a good double, I would say, if Ogunjobi had come to the Bears and worked out. Like he seemed to fit perfectly, seemed to be at a great point in his career and like where he is just getting it. And he's got some prime years left, like literally age-wise. But, so it would have been good, but it just comes down to like kind of what he said, like, it sucks. It sucks. Same thing with Ryan Bates. Taking the swing on the offensive lineman. It's like, yeah, that's not going to make or break anything for the legacy of Ryan Poles, but it kind of sucks that you weren't able to get those guys. So those were and I just point those out because those were a little bit more pointed swings than anything that they have done, the Larry Ogunjobi and Ryan Bates. The rest of these guys, I've got hope for these guys, but it's not like they are the types of dudes that actually Ryan Poles has talked about, and that is difference makers. He's talked about the professionalism, the mean streak, so he's got that going, I guess, for now.
Were you surprised by the amount of callers that you have that became experts on the Buffalo Bills depth chart over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah. I mean, it's it's really pretty amazing when you think about it. That people would go down that route, but it seems like it's going to make sense. I mean, you got Indianapolis to think about, you've got Kansas City to think about, Buffalo to think about in terms of at teams that we are deriving from and
Right.
discussing because of the coaches and managers that exist on the team.
It's funny too because everybody had their heart set on Ryan Bates all of a sudden. And to me, it would be akin to if, let's say, Mike Trout was a restricted, Kevin, why am I even putting this in the atmosphere? Mike Trout was a restricted free agent and the Angels matched the offer. The disappointment that would befell Cubs fans seems very similar to Ryan Bates. Like everybody acted like we just lost the greatest player. We lost prime Walter Payton somehow when Ryan Bates signed that offer sheet.
Oh, dude, it's so funny you say that. Like people are, I don't know why. Like I guess I should give fans a little bit of credit too, because they were very aware of this man. You know, they were aware of a guy who has had, to your point, 5 starts in his life. And he definitely looks like a guy who might be on the rise, but we don't know. I mean, he played in a bunch of games and he looks pretty sturdy, but yeah, by no means is that a guy that you have to read up on. Is not a guy who is going to make or break your roster, especially with an offensive line that you could just see Ryan Poles is almost just, scurrying to get out the old. Like he's more into James Daniels. Move on if you want. I don't care. Sam Mustipher, I'm sorry, but no, cannot have that anymore. Cody Whitehair seems to be safe. And then as for Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borum, he's like, I have no idea about you guys. So in the meantime, I'm going to proceed as if I need to put together an entire offensive line. And that's the way he's proceeding.
Yeah. And, and it's one of those things here. And to give fans a little bit of credit, I think that once we do sign players or show interest, our friends like Berlissimo and some of these other great, great. They go out and do the work for you.
Oh, yeah.
And they show you the tape of like why you should like this player. So that's why everybody gets like in a frenzy.
Oh,
but at the same time, it's a $4 million offer sheet. We're okay. Yeah. Like it's fine. We'll figure it out. Right. I do like the idea of Borum and Jenkins being like, whenever you go to a bachelor party and the groom's cousins show up who nobody knows, and you're like, okay, like let's see how. And sometimes it goes, and it's they're the swing of the whole weekend. Because if those guys are cool, the weekend's great. Yeah. If those guys are a nightmare, then it brings everything down. Then people split apart, and then everything goes wrong. But I'm willing. So far, I think both of them are going to work out very well. And I think the fact that we haven't chased guys like Teron Armstead or somebody like that leads me to believe, and I might be connecting dots that don't need to be connected, that perhaps Ryan Poles is okay enough with these guys, and we still have a draft coming up, so there's still going to be an opportunity to go out and fill some of these holes.
Well, yeah, and I think that, and why shouldn't he be high on Tevin Jenkins, other than the injury factor? And that's a real factor. That is something that can make or break a player's tenure on a team for sure. But I mean, most scouts agreed and most evaluators agreed that when Tevin Jenkins was a blocker at Oklahoma State, he was pretty good. He was pretty good. And I know that there was more right tackle involved, and they had to, implore him to play with that mean streak and all of that. Like, it's almost like they had to create that in him. But those were like the small critiques. Like it was widely thought that he was a first round talent, and he was a second round talent, and he was injured last year. So we have zero idea at this point if he is going to be an NFL starter and at what position. But I think that based on what he did in college, you can still project him as a pretty decent player in the NFL if he stays healthy. So, and as for Borum, who knows? I mean, Borum made progress early and then sort of faded away towards the end of last season, but there was a lot going on. And, he is a 5th-round pick. So to think that he's done developing is crazy. So they may look at, and they are. I mean, Ryan Poles would have to say, take a chance. Like, this is raw clay here. Have I seen enough on tape, really, essentially, from both guys to think that there is a next step and they could play an important role in protecting the very important Justin Fields?
Yeah, and you know what? And again, if they would have gotten the Ryan Bates, because they already have Lucas Patrick, if they would have brought in Bates, they would have redone the interior of the offensive line, which can still be addressed in the draft. So I'm with you. I think there's something to work with there. So it's not all doom and gloom, even though the national media sometimes wants to point out that we haven't done anything. I think that they're doing an okay job of trying to fill in some of the blanks. And one of those players recently, a fill in the blanks type of person, Dane Crookshank, signed this week with the Chicago Bears. I will say this, and I know again, like I'm going to chastise everybody for you never heard, he's not a big name. He's not the honey badger, but I do know, I will say this though, this is how I knew he was a good signing. And this comes from my fantasy experience on the NFL Fantasy Live show.
See, that helps right there.
We were fading, the Titans did not give up a lot of production to opposing tight ends. So we would be like, you don't necessarily point to the guy where you're like, oh, I remember talking about this. We didn't like starting Jack Doyle or O'Shaughnessy. If you're thinking of starting Jordan Akins for the Texans this week, maybe not against the Titans. They've done a pretty nice job against opposing tight ends. What about you? How do you feel about, again, I think this is one of those signings that, again, Mina Kimes is not going to come out and write a glowing column about it. But I think ultimately this is a good type of role player to bring into Chicago.
Oh, absolutely. And it also can, I think about the incumbents in these predicaments as well. Guys that are already on the roster. What do they think? What is Cole Kmet thinking when they bring in another tight end? What's going on there? And it does seem like it. I put it, and for some reason, my brain, I was having trouble actually coming up with the name, but Kari Blasingame, the fullback that the Bears signed as well.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. It's okay, this is interesting. A fullback. Okay, what does that mean? You start to see what he values, and then you could kind of predict maybe this is something Luke Getsy wanted. Did he say, you know what, if we're gonna run my offense, we need a fullback, who really had their hand in all that. That's kind of what I want to know. Is this Ryan Poles, or are they sitting around as the coach is saying, I could use this guy, or I could use that guy, or they're all identifying, they've got the same formula of what they're trying to identify, but they're all allowed to sort of point in a direction? Or is it just Poles just here we go, this is what I'm going to do? But no, I every signing, and maybe you and I doing what we do, maybe we blow them up and try to find the importance and the meaning in these signings. But for the most part, I think that it's legit when you look at most of them and say, yeah, they need that, and that might be better than what they had last year.
No, and it's true. And again, a lot of what I do, it always goes back to fantasy and everything like that. But you think of Luke Getsy, and there's connections all the way through the NFL, and a lot of it stems from and you can look at what the 49ers do, and you look at Kyle Shanahan. And when I think of Kyle Shanahan, I think of Kyle Juszczyk. So when they make that signing, I'm obviously we're the dorks who are this is our Juszczyk. This is our type of guy that perhaps they'll use him that way. But this is not going to be a team that's going to be rolling out a lot of great depth at the wide receiver position. And if they want to protect their young quarterback, they want to run the football. And if you think that you need to upgrade your offensive line, well, then it behooves you to go out. I think this is the second time I've used the word behoove.
That's pretty good.
It behooves you to go out there and grab a fullback. It's an extra blocker in the backfield. And for whatever reason, when it's Getsy and what's going on with the organization right now, I feel a lot more comfortable. If it was Matt Nagy, I would be okay, what are you doing, bro? What is happening?
Yeah.
But now I feel this all makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Yeah, we probably actually with the fullback part of it, the blasting game factor, as I continue to obsess over him. If Nagy had brought in a blasting game, people would have applauded that. That would have been like,
That's
"Oh,
true.
you're gonna
That's
try to
true.
run." Yeah, and the Crookshank signing, you get a DB back there. Matt Nagy probably wouldn't have had anything to do with that because Lord knows he
Oh,
didn't want to put his foot in the defense. That's for
how
sure.
would you run a jet sweep on 4th down if you have a fullback?
Yeah, and you decide that's safety. What are we doing here? Come on. So yeah, it's funny that we still have that reference. Well, why shouldn't we? We're still sort of fresh off the firing and the
still
change
hurts
of
us
guard.
right here.
Oh yeah, yep. We got an Eberflus now. So we'll see, man. I mean, who knows what there will be something big. And I'm like you when it comes to the draft. I don't put together my own mock drafts, but I do like reading what all of you guys, everybody has to say. I do like the mock drafts. I get off on all the preview and the actual draft night. But the Bears got a new guy, so we're anxious. We're all like, well, what does he value? I mean, we're really going to find out when we get to those second round picks, assuming that's where it stays.
Yeah, that's the biggest question. Is he going to be a trade down guy? Is he going to be a trade up guy?
Yeah.
My personal feeling, I honestly believe that he uses one of those second round picks and then trades down some more, acquires more draft capital for this season. It's just conjecture. I don't have any, just based on what the Chiefs might have done or something like that. Although the Chiefs have been aggressive, over the course of their years, they traded up for Patrick Mahomes and things like that. But I think ultimately they're all about roster building at this point, and roster building involves more players. So I could see that kind of situation going up. But again, we don't know. It's a blank canvas. We know what Pace would have done.
Right. Yeah, we do know what Pace would have done. Absolutely. But I mean, again, to your point, Poles did say for our the introductory press conference was we're going to build through the draft, which I guess is not exactly a revolutionary thing for a GM to say in the NFL, but he's been steadfast in that and having more picks now. That what does he have, 6 now with the extra one next year as well? So yep. The idea that he would trade out of that second, trade down on that's far from implausible. And but at the same time, I would be intrigued to see what he would do with 2 second-round picks. And normally, second-round picks, or at least they should be starters in the NFL. So you could get 2 starters in the second round.
Yeah, I'm not going to be mad at it if he goes wide receiver, guard, if he goes wide receiver, if he goes corner. Right. I would like him not to go corner. I know a lot of people have been talking about I'm like, you know what? We've done defense forever. Like we don't. Let's go all off. I think the one thing about the Bears too, and I know that we joked about it, the jet sweeps and all that stuff, is Bears fans can get locked into the 90s or the 80s a little bit too much. Of like we need to run all 3 downs, never throw the football and stuff like that. I think we need if it's John Tapper or somebody who's doing one of those remake shows, we need a modern twist on an old concept. And I think that Matt Nagy was too revolutionary. Whoa, you're not even, you got rid of the, listen, you can still serve old style, but it's okay to bring in some micro brews. We need somebody to blend the two. Right. You got rid of old style and you brought in high-end cocktails, which nobody wants. It's not going to work. Let's have a combination of the two. And I think that's what Eberflus and Ryan Poles are doing. It's we'll be a run team, but I think that we have a quarterback who can push the ball down the field that we can do both of those things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, they 100% want to be a modern NFL offense. They don't want to. They may hide it a little better than Matt Nagy did, but they probably don't want to have to run the football any more than Matt Nagy really wanted to run the football. It's going to be in their mentality, like you said, with Matt Eberflus, that he is a defensive coach. So I always assume that they have those values of defense and running wins games. But yeah, man, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's funny because when Nagy came in, I actually think fans were on board with the revolution, of the Bears But I think some of them had to be talked into it. But I think that even the most ardent of the super fans, like people that are, men in their 60s or 70s or whatever, who only believe in football as one damn way, I think even those guys and gals were probably like, with all the badness that the Bears have had through the years and Bear, 6 playoff wins since the 80s. I mean, something just horrible like that even those fans probably came to like, okay, I give up. Nagy, show us what you got. So then Matt Nagy shows us what he's got. And in the first year, it's trick plays and it's fun. And that does not work with the super fans. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
okay, you keep doing these trick plays. That's not going to work out. So but they won that year, so they're a little skeptical. And then when it really starts to go haywire, all those Bears fans that you had won over, now all of a sudden they're like, okay, I tried this. We got to go back to running the football. Let's put Alex Bars in. Let's get a fullback in. Let's line them up here and run the damn and by the end of the tenure of Matt Nagy, I'll be damned if we weren't hearing all of that from just about everybody who felt like being heard. They gotta run. They gotta run. They gotta run. So now we're in a really weird place with Eberflus. I don't know where we are with him.
Well, the good thing about Eberflus, and you've been around for a while, which is a nice way of saying you're old. I'm teasing. But I feel like it's very similar to Lovie Smith. And a lot of the things that Lovie talked about and a lot of things that Lovie preached are a lot of the things that Matt Eberflus is now also preaching. And I still think that it has a role here in the NFL. Obviously, the Texans have brought in Lovie Smith to be the coach. Yeah. I think that it's kind of a nice mix of bringing him in, the old and the new. We can do both.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, and I kind of like the accountability thing that they seem to be having going on. Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus with the hits principle and all that. And I know that it's easy to make fun of that stuff, but that they're not just throwing this out there. This isn't just T-shirt stuff. And if you buy in, you buy in. If you don't, you don't. You have no choice but to buy into this little plan that they have, because as they said, as players have said that have played for him in the past, if you are not following that, you ain't going to play. So, and that, so it's like, it's more legit than like the cheesy proverbs and whatever the hell they're throwing at us. It's actually and so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I don't mind a little accountability with players, Yeah.
The loaves, the M&Ms, all that stuff. I'm in.
Yeah.
I dig it. Why not? Football is hokey anyways. Being a coach is hokey. And I honestly, I was one of those people who was very excited about Matt Nagy, bought into obviously right from the get-go, the BU, the club dub, all that stuff. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then eventually, we're trying to find out the whys. Then it became a terrible message. So I'm willing to go back to the drawing board with Matt Eberflus. And I said the deference and the buy-in that I gave Matt Nagy, I think everybody needs to do that with Eberflus too.
Sure.
And so I would ask you, Mark, what are your expectations for this coming season? Because I spend too much time in Chicago Bears Twitter. And now one of my friends today was like, I'd be surprised if the Bears win 2 games. And I'm like, you got stop. We're not doing this. We're not playing this game. But what are your expectations for the coming year?
I don't have high expectations. I'm not into the Bears will only win 2 games. That I think is ridiculous. I'm more into right now. You're asking me this. I'm more into the 6 to 8 wins. I don't think it's going to be a great year. It doesn't feel like it's setting up to be that. I think it's setting up to be a year that maybe you get lucky and, squeeze into a playoff spot or, get hot at a weird time. They're, like I said, they're putting together a team of players that, there is still some very sharp talent in some spots with Roquan Smith and Jalen Johnson. And I guess David Montgomery, I suppose you could throw in that category. But mostly you are having I am assuming, a starless team a team that lacks a game-changing superstar or somebody that is game planned for by the defense. Like, they just lack that guy right now, like game planning. I mean, there's some of that probably offensively. Where's Roquan Smith? Let's stay away from Jalen Johnson and go to whoever the opposite guy is. So there's not going to be a lot of that, but there's enough professionals on the Bears or guys that are good enough to be starting in the NFL that, I don't think that it doesn't feel at all like a bottom drops out team, but it doesn't feel like anymore. Like, I'd be stretching to see them win 8 games or more this year.
And honestly, when you look at the NFC right now, the way it's constructed, the top 3 teams have older quarterbacks: Rodgers, Stafford, Brady, who might or might not. I know that Stafford signed a contract extension, might or might not be playing next year. And then you've got the next level. You got Dak and you got Kyler, who are fine, who are talented, but unproven. I don't think either one of them's won a. Well, I think Dak's won a playoff game. Dak did beat. Yeah, they beat the Rams one year or something. I don't
Wait
know.
a minute, did they? I thought the Cowboys had. I think the Cowboys have been. They haven't won a playoff game for like pre Tony Romo, I thought.
Yeah. Well, somebody's lighting me up somebody's lighting us up in the comments right now. They're like, Rank's an idiot. How does he not know this? I don't care about the Cowboys.
I gotta hit the chat.
How about that? How about that? The chat will be gone. But here's the thing, but they're 2 guys that they have as many playoff wins right now as Justin Fields. So again, I don't think that it's that far away. I don't think it's in the cards for 2022, but I think 2023 is when this team starts to really get cooking, and it's not that far off. And who knows, by the time next year, maybe all these guys will be traded to the AFC and we won't have to worry about them.
Yeah, the quarterbacks in the Bears division are getting a little bit along in the tooth too, So.
Oh, I forgot Kirk Cousins is in there.
Yeah.
Surprising that I forgot him. Yeah. I forgot him like he was a Michelob Ultra in the fridge. But at least I bought the Michelob Ultra, so the joke's on me.
No, they don't want those. Who needs low carbs? Come on, let's get it back to the real stuff,
Yeah, that's why. Well, listen, they don't sell old style out here in California. But in any event, Mark, I want to thank you for stopping in. I don't know if we're interrupting your biorhythms by having you out while the sun is shining, but we do appreciate you joining us. And I'm sincere. I want to be on 670 The Score.
Oh, I want to
do the overnights.
Oh,
I'll do it regularly if I can.
I would love it, man. And honestly, I am not a fantasy guy, and I don't hate fantasy, but maybe you could talk me into it. Maybe once the season starts, you can do fantasy stuff too. So, but yeah, man, absolutely, yeah. I'll get you. I'll be getting in contact with you soon. A producer will be contacting you, and we'll get you on, man. It'll be that sounds like a blast. I'm glad we did this, man. And I am today, by the way. This is the day that I get to see the light, but I am in a couple hours, I'm going to be walking down the block to an AMC theater in Chicago to see the Batman. So I have not seen it yet. So that is my day. I know you mentioned DC before the show started, and so I am going to see. Have you seen the Batman?
You know what? Now this is the problem with kids is I don't that's a normal, a Thursday night would be there. Like when Batman versus Superman came out, which I absolutely enjoyed, I was first night, saw it 3 times opening weekend, but now it's now I watched this. I finally got to see the Suicide Squad finally.
Okay. All right. So but you're not even, but the Batman's not even on your radar. That's like
oh my gosh.
Question. Yeah.
I'm going to have to wait till it comes out on HBO Max or something.
Yeah.
I'd watch Zack Snyder's version of the Justice League, as a mini series. So, which again, I thought was good. That was way better. Wasn't as good as I would have made it, but that was better.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, I look at it as, sometimes I think I've got it perfectly because I'm a single man and I don't have kids or ex-wives or anything like that. And this is one of those moments. I think it's 50-50. It's nice to have someone, but when you're single, I don't have to run anything by anybody. I'm going to get up and go see damn Batman. That's the way it is. And that is not to discount. This is just a win for me. That's all I'm saying. This is not to discount those who have special someones in their life because it's beautiful and I've seen that work, but this is just today's a win for me. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to say I love my children, and I know my
Yes.
boy sometimes will break into the show, but there's also a special place in hell where you have to call somebody because your golf round has been taking too long, and you're like, look, I might be an hour late picking up the kids. And normally, like you're like, I might break 90. I cannot leave.
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to hold on to those children. You can go take them to wherever or do whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
But it happens. But today is your day, Mark, and I want you to go enjoy it. I want you to let me know how it is. No spoilers, obviously, but I know a lot of people have enjoyed that movie, so I hope you enjoyed it as well. As much as I've enjoyed this conversation, I want to bring you back on again at some point, and we'll do something on 670 The Score. Happy to do it, and it's been great talking to you today.
Yeah, man. I look forward to talking to you soon, Adam. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thank you very much. There he goes. The great Mark Grody. Make sure that you're checking them out on 670 The Score, the overnights. And by the way, I will tell you this as well. If you're not in the Chicagoland area, you can go listen to him. They download it. They got a website like everybody else. You can go in and listen to it. He does a great job for them. He has done a great job covering Chicago sports for a number of years. And as we wrap up here, again, 1 month from the NFL draft, I just want to, again, it feels like the message continues to be similar. Preach patience. I know this is a jigsaw puzzle. This is like my 3-year-old who you see here running in every once in a while, usually on the Tuesday night show, coming in, dumping everything on the floor. It looks like a mess right now, but ultimately when we get it all put together, it is going to be a picture to behold. So big thanks once again to our guest, Mark Grody. On Tuesday, Caitlin Sharkey, Fox Sports anchor, will be joining us on the Take It to the Rank show. And on next Thursday, Nicholas Moreno. That's right, Nicholas Moreno. We're going to be reaching out to the CHGO Bears Network and bringing him in here to the show. So a lot of good stuff to look forward to, and hope everybody has a great weekend. Want to thank everybody here for joining us. Thank you for everybody who's in the chats. Thank you for everybody who was lighting me up about the Dak Prescott thing. Listen, I know, but I don't know. But it's one of those, listen, I'm a Bears guy. This is all about the Bears. All my knowledge of the Dallas Cowboys has left my head at the moment. But thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share it with a friend. Tell your friends on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Go to the local watering hole. Be like, if you listen to the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank, you should. It's excellent. But in any event, thank you for being here. And Sammy, why don't you roll us out? Oh, bear down.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.